Hello and welcome to the Blog Chronicles podcast. I am your host, Matthew Loomis, and today my guest is Jessica Sweet. She's an international career coach who specializes in helping people transition into new careers. She's well aware of the realities of the job market out there and brings a practical, positive attitude to clients that need encouragement. She's an expert at helping people make big changes in their career and life. Jessica is also a blogger, using content marketing to attract new clients to her coaching career website. So today I will ask her about how she blogs for her business, and we'll also spend a lot of time talking about how her coaching process empowers people to turn what they love to do into a new career. So let's now add Jessica Sweet to the Blog Chronicles. Hi Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah, so as a professional career coach, I'd like for you to describe to us with some detail how the job market is looking right now in the U.S. Just, based on your perspective and what you're seeing and hearing with your career coaching business, not just what the government statistics are saying.
Yeah. The statistics, you can look at those, and the market seems to be doing well. And I think, but what my coaching business is saying is that there's a market out there for people who want jobs, for people who are, ready to work. And I think that there is, the market is changing in that companies really are interested in people's skills and experiences, and not just what their resume says they have done, what their history is. The statistics, you look at what the job market is, and whether people are getting hired, and May wasn't so good, but just in general, in the US, things are good. But I think the overall trend is that, yes, people are getting hired, and the people that are getting hired quickly are the people that are networking, people that are using their networks, people that are really looking at the whole of what they've done and what they want to be doing, and are kind of showcasing that to potential employers and saying, it's not just that I've, come from this background and I want to do this in the future, but, that I can take these skills and I can make whatever the employer needs to have happen, because I am dynamic and I am smart, and I can deliver on whatever it is that you need to have happen. So that's really what I'm seeing, is that the clients that I have that get hired are the ones that are really able to illustrate how they can get a job done for an employer, not just that they fill a hole in the company's organization.
Do you find that a website or blog helps people to maybe showcase what they can do, like with a portfolio or things like that?
Yeah, I think definitely there's a lot. The first thing that employers will do is they'll Google you for sure. So having an online presence, whether it's a website or a blog or any kind of social media, is really, really important. You definitely want to make sure that your online presence is, what you want an employer to see if you're job seeking.
Right.
So I think, what I've seen more than anything else, you don't want a blog that talks about anything you wouldn't want your employer to see, for sure. So anything negative, anything that you feel is negative. But what I've seen more than that is the social media stuff. So your LinkedIn, the stuff you'd expect, LinkedIn, Facebook, those accounts are the things that I've seen more than blogs, but employers are going to scope you out. They're going to read your blog entries to see who you are and what you care about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the other thing that I've seen about what's happening online in relation to employment is really kind of creative and interesting resumes. I saw a resume recently. It was posted on LinkedIn, and some of your listeners might have seen the same thing. It was a resume, and I think it was a developer who was applying for an IT job, and he basically made it was a very mini video game resume. So you had a video character, and you kind of scrolled on your computer to make the character walk, and he walked through a landscape, and as he walked, it would kind of unfold the different worlds, and the different worlds talked about, it had words that talked about, here's my skills world, and it talked about his skills, and here's my experiences world and my education world. And so that was his resume. It wasn't a piece of paper, but it was a little video game as he's jumping in one world and swimming in another world. And so it was very interactive. So it not only, gave the information, but also illustrated his abilities to do what the employer needed him to do. And it was very creative and eye-catching.
Now, was this for a like video game job or?
I don't really know. It was something posted on LinkedIn. I
Yeah.
saw it. I thought it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't investigate it fully, but
It sounds really awesome.
it was awesome.
I'm wondering if it was like niche specific, you know?
I don't. I mean, it was some kind of developer. It could have been related to that.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, he thought that was going to be the thing that made them say wow, and it certainly made enough people say wow that he was trending on LinkedIn. And even if that person didn't hire him, somebody on LinkedIn probably saw it and said, this guy's creative and let me take a look at him. So it was a very effective resume, to say the least. But
yeah.
So stuff like that, it demonstrated his skills, his creativity, and was eye-catching. So that's an example of something that you could do online. You could do on your own blog. You could do something creative and interesting on your own blog. And definitely employers are going to scope you out online and see what you're up to.
Mm-hmm.
So be up to something interesting and something that shows that you can get the job done.
Yeah. So just to clarify, you also work with clients outside of the U.S. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've worked with clients all over the world. The major places outside the U.S. that I work with people are of course, Canada, but also Australia, which I find interesting. I'm not sure if that's a cultural thing, why, folks from Australia call me. But a lot of people from Australia, also all over Europe, so UK and other places too. So yeah, it's been really fun to connect with folks all over the world, and that's one of the really incredible things that I love about what I am doing. I can sit here in my apartment, in my office, and talk to folks from everywhere. So,
that's right. Yeah, I just want the international listeners to know that even though we started off talking about the U.S. job market, most of what we'll be talking about today applies to them as well.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a question that I get sometimes from clients that call me from elsewhere, like, how can you help me if you don't know anything about, the job landscape or the job market here? And what I say to people about that is that, it may be true that I don't know as much or even anything about the market from the place that they're calling from. But a lot of the work that I do with people is about mindset. Interestingly, that ends up being the majority of the work that I do, because what happens is for people, it comes down to a lot of things like confidence or interviewing skills or different things like that. So a lot of stuff is about mindset. And then the other
Mm-hmm.
thing that happens is there are a lot of, questions that we come up against, even, like here in the US, and we come up against a question and the answer is neither of us know. And we have to Google it. We have to research it. We have to go ask people. We have to do an informational interview. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. It would never be a question that anyone would know the answer to. And there's a million questions like that in the world. And I think that that's what's happening in the world is like, there's so much information flying around so fast, and being smart and being knowledgeable and being an expert on something is not about having all the information. It's about knowing the right questions to ask and knowing how to gather that information.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the process is really, being able to dig in and figuring out how to solve the problem rather than having all the answers. So that's what I talk about when I talk about working with international clients is we figure out how to solve it. And I know the questions to ask to get to helping you overcome the hurdle of figuring out what do you want to do and how do we make that happen. So
That's great. I'm so glad you're out there helping people. I find that mindset is also a big part of just blogging, you know?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, absolutely. No doubt. No doubt. Yeah.
um,
It's
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say it's sort of a marathon. So yeah.
Yeah. So, how much opportunity are you seeing for people today who want to do like freelancing or consulting work from home or even starting a business from home?
Well, I think there's a lot. They call it the freelance movement. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think there's a ton, and I think it's only growing.
That's what I was doing 4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think companies are moving towards that. It's I think a lot less expensive for a company to hire a freelancer. It's a lot riskier, a lot less risky to hire a freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so I think the whole freelance economy is something that's growing. I think especially, millennials are pushing towards that too. It's the whole emphasis on work-life balance,
Mm-hmm.
and not being tied to a single job, 40 hours a week or more, and just having a lot more flexibility in your life. It's just the whole world, or the whole, what I'm seeing of my little slice of the world here in the U.S. is definitely pushing towards that.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I think there's
Right.
a lot of opportunity. And there's only going to be more.
And when you work with clients who are interested in transitioning to their own home-based business, do you encourage them to start a website?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that um, I won't say you can't start a business without that, a home-based business without it. But I think that it would be impossibly hard without
Mm-hmm.
it. I think you're doing yourself a huge favor to have a website, because you can just tap into so many more people. And everybody's first instinct when you hear about anything is to look it up online and get more information about it. And if
Mm-hmm.
there's no opportunity to do that, you just look for the next thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, yep.
You say on your website that being an entrepreneur is easier today than ever before. Can
Mhm.
you talk about why you say that?
Yeah, I think, years ago, and this is the most unscientific statement ever, but um, years ago, who knows how many years, it cost a lot to become an entrepreneur. Like none of the tools that are available today were available.
Mm-hmm.
If they were available, they cost so much that they weren't available to you and I. Like you could not afford to do what you can do today. Today, you need a
Right.
laptop, and you need to, afford what you need for an email list and a website and you're basically up and running. Like there's not much you need. It doesn't have to cost a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, you can get fancy and have bells and whistles and whatever, but it doesn't have to cost a lot. So you can start small and build from there. And
Yeah.
it's just amazing what you can do.
Can you, off the top of your head, think of a success story in this area that you've helped?
Sure, sure. Yeah. Let's see. I have had, oh, let's see. I've had so many. I had a client who, she was in marketing and she wanted to do some, like, what she came to me with was a feeling. Like she didn't know what she wanted to do, but she came to me with a feeling like she wanted to offer personalized help to people, and she didn't know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
It just was a feeling. And she also loved to travel, and so what we discovered through our conversations was that she really wanted to do really personalized types of tours to a specific country, like travel tours to a specific country that she knew very well for a particular kind of traveler. And so she worked to make that happen.
Wow.
So that, yeah. And, to get that set up, it's really about connecting somebody who wants something, a particular something, with that something, which she knew she had because she was connected with that country and she had those connections in the country. And she knew all the marketing stuff because that was her background. And so she was able to tap into that market, use the online tools, and make all that happen. I mean, obviously, I'm way oversimplifying it. It was more complex than that, but she was able to do it because she had all the tools available to her online.
Yeah. Now it sounds like though that she didn't have that clear direction at first.
Oh no.
It was through your coaching, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she ended up using a lot of the skills that she already had, but she took them in a real different direction. She didn't want to go back to a marketing job. She didn't want to do the 9 to 5. And she really wanted to integrate something she cared about and this feeling that was the really overpowering thing that she came to me with. Like what she wanted, like to help people and have like a really personalized something, a really high end something. And it really all came together in these like very luxury travel tours.
Yeah. I see that desire to help people a lot in people wanting to start blogs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They have an idea or just a feeling like you described it. They know they want to help people. Sometimes they have a clear niche right off the bat, and sometimes it's not real clear. But you obviously, maybe you also had that feeling at some point because you help people.
Mm-hmm.
And in your own business as an entrepreneur yourself with the Wishing Well coaching. So how long have you been running this business?
That's a really good question because I started out very slow, and the start date was like not a line in the sand. So I started after my first daughter was born. She's 8 now. But it was an evolution. And it was a process of figuring out what this really was. And I started sort of with a feeling too. So I was a therapist. I'm a clinical social worker. And that's what I did before this. And then my daughter was born, and basically I was going to be forking over my paycheck to childcare. So that didn't really make sense. And yes, I wanted to help people. I did make sense to put her in daycare all day, so I was going to stay home. But I also needed to do something. And the feeling I had was I really wanted to help people give their true gifts to the world. I felt like there was this misalignment between what people had to give, their skills, their what was in their heart,
Yeah.
um, and what they ended up spending their time doing all day long. Um,
Hmm.
and it took me about 3 years to figure out what the heck that meant, like how to actually make that happen in the world. So first, nobody really knows this. I haven't really talked about this. Um,
Hmm.
I actually started a first company, which was Wishing Well Consulting. And it was I helped people do philanthropy, like consulting. So companies and high net worth individuals, I helped them figure out how to give. Like, what do you want to, where do you want to spend your charity dollars?
Hmm.
Um, and I did that for a little while, but it just was totally wrong. Totally wrong. It just gave me a sick feeling in my stomach every time I got a new client.
Hmm.
I hated it. I
Yeah.
hated it. And so it aligned, like it on paper, it looked right. Like
Right.
it matched with what my feeling was, but
Yeah.
there was something about it so wrong. So I went back to the drawing board and I folded up that business almost all the way, and I like hung my head and I was ashamed and like told my friends and family, like, so flaky. Like, yeah, I thought I was going to start my business, but I'm not.
Well, you should be commended, Jessica, for at least doing something and testing the waters there.
Yeah. Well, that's what I realized later was
Yeah.
that like I really had to be true to myself. And you know what? That's part of the process. It's so part of the
Hmm.
process. And then like tucking your tail and saying like, oh, I screwed up. This doesn't work. I'm going back to like, for me, it was going to be going back to like playing Legos on the floor. But for a lot of people, it's like going back to their 9 to 5.
Hmm.
You can't do it. You have to try again. It's part of
Yeah.
the process. And so I went back and then I started this and it was perfect. And I love it.
Hmm.
I love it. So
Yeah.
it's so part of the process.
I think they call it failing forward now.
It is, yay!
Right. So your site has a blog, and I'm curious what role your blog plays with your business.
Yeah, so I think it's a great place for people to get to know me.
Hmm.
Because it's like it's my personality online. It's my way for me to interact with people online. It's a way for people to find me online.
Hmm.
Um, so it's my connection to the rest of the world. That's really what it is. It's a way for me to express my views and how I feel and think about things, and me to teach people about career change and personal development topics and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So it's like me online is what it is.
Hmm.
That's how I feel about my blog. The other thing is,
Hmm.
that's my blog, but then there's sort of like an arm of my blog, which is guest posting. So it's blogging for other people's blogs.
Hmm.
And I get to do that. And so it's sort of like me going on a trip and, visiting other people. And so that's awesome too.
Yeah. That sounds good. How often do you blog?
Well, it depends. I really try to blog once a week. But in the summer, I slack off a little bit.
Hmm.
I can't lie. But I really try once a week because it really, I think people, when you have readers, they kind of depend on it. They kind of like look for it in their
Hmm.
email inbox. Um,
Hmm.
they look to see, oh, there's nothing new to read. And I won't, I hope they're disappointed because I hope they enjoy reading my stuff. And some of the feedback I get says that they do.
Hmm.
But there's definitely a gap there when they don't see it. So that consistency, I think, is really important to readers.
Yeah, absolutely. Consistency is very important.
Yeah.
How transparent are you on your blog?
That's a great question. Um, I'm fairly transparent, actually.
That's what I figured. You said it was to introduce yourself.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good question, and it's one I've struggled with, and I've gotten bolder over the years.
Hmm.
Um, but I always, before I put something on my blog, I always ask myself why I'm doing it. Something that's sensitive potentially.
Hmm.
I ask myself why I'm doing it. I ask myself if it's going to help me connect better with my readers or if it's going to alienate me from them.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, there's a difference between um, putting stuff out there, and I think it's the same on your blog and in real life. Like you wouldn't go in real life and meet somebody and just like dump on them all your stuff, and you
Hmm.
wouldn't do that on your blog either. Um, but you can share details and even sort of more intimate details, even in a business, I think if you do it appropriately. Um, and so that's kind of how I think about it is like I'm
Hmm.
talking to a real person in my mind when I blog.
Hmm.
And would I share this with a real person at this time? And if the answer is yes, then I pretty much share it if I feel like I can get myself over that hurdle of like if I would share it with somebody else. So
Okay. So it may not necessarily have a business tie-in, but if it somehow has a purpose that you think helps people get to know you better,
mhm.
that's your goal. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and for me, getting to know me better is a business tie-in because really, when they're working with me, um, that's a huge part of what they're buying.
Hmm.
Obviously, what they're buying is really the end result, but they're not buying that result without buying into the fact that they are working with me in particular versus somebody else. Um,
Yeah.
they don't know me and know who I am and think, okay, this person is somebody I could work with for a while. Um, it's not going to fly.
Yeah.
So they definitely, I feel like, have to know me on some level.
So it sounds like that you've experienced good results by sharing some personal stories.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. So one story in particular that I feel like a lot of my readers have connected with is the fact that my dad really, really hated his job growing up. And so I talk about what that was like for him and what that was like for me.
Hmm.
Um, and like the day that he quit. Um, so I think a lot of readers, like I've gotten a lot of emails that have been basically like, oh, I read that story and I totally feel like him. I totally
Yeah.
understand that. So, if I were more conservative or reserved on my blog and never talked about me or who I was or growing up or anything, I wouldn't have shared that story. But
Yeah.
I think that really makes sense. So to talk about.
I think it's an effective way to go for any blogger, really.
Hmm.
So, Jessica, it sounds like you create your content yourself.
Yeah.
Um, how do you get ideas for posts and plan out your content schedule?
Um, so there's two parts to that question. Um, the ideas part, I don't really struggle with. I'm definitely an ideas person. And I
Mhm.
get ideas from everywhere. And um, I write them down and I capture them. The second part to that question, which is about scheduling, is much harder for me. So um, the solution to that problem is my wonderful VA.
Hmm.
I don't do a very good job of that. So I've been able to outsource that. Um,
Okay.
so but I think before I got to that point, it was really a matter of, trying to capture those ideas and put them somewhere all in one place and then figure out, what is the best way to connect with my readers right now. And there are, I think, much better ways to do like an editorial calendar than I have done it. Much more scientific ways, better ways to figure out like what you want to be blogging about right now, and all of those things. And I would be lying if I said that I am that advanced. Really, what I do is say, what do I feel like talking about right now? What feels appropriate? And then I talk about that.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah.
You're pretty spontaneous,
I
sounds like.
am. I am spontaneous. Sometimes it's about trends. Sometimes it's inspired by a conversation I've had with a client recently.
Hmm.
Um, so
You're flexible,
I
sounds
am.
like.
I try to be. I do.
Yeah. So you may have some ideas kind of on the back burner, but then if something pops up, you're okay with putting those other things aside and just going with it and blogging on it. And um, now, do you do video, any audio, or do you just write?
I really right now just write. I just haven't gotten to those other things yet.
Hmm.
They're sort of all on my list of things to get to, but I think one of the things that happens as a small business owner is you can't do everything. There are a
Right.
lot of details, and one of the things that for me, and I believe is true for probably everybody, is that you have to look at, um, you know, you have to focus. That's really been my key word, is focus. Um,
Hmm.
what are you trying to do, and how are you going to make that happen? And there's a lot of things that are out there that, are that can distract you. A lot of things to get excited
Hmm.
about, a lot of things to focus on that are fancy or cool or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and
Cough, cough. Social media. Cough, cough.
yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. And yes, I could be doing some awesome stuff like video or audio.
Hmm.
And there's no doubt it would probably drive traffic and it would be fun, but I don't mentally have the bandwidth to do all of that stuff. I can't do everything.
Hmm.
I have to like focus on my core competency, which is writing, and
Hmm.
just do it as consistently as I can, and do the other things that I have to do as consistently as I can, and make all that other stuff happen. And then, the
Hmm.
goal I think is to outsource stuff and then eventually scale up. That's been my model. Um,
Hmm.
but until I get there, I can't add in other pieces, because then what happens for me is that I get scattered and I can't get stuff done. And I think that's true for anybody. And I've seen that with my clients too, is that if they try to do too much too soon, it doesn't work. So
Yeah.
I think that's definitely true when you're starting a business.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Good stuff. Thanks for being transparent there.
Sure.
Um, I want to go back to entrepreneurs and freelancers and people who want to be self-employed.
Hmm.
Now, as a career coach, you help people find the career of their dreams, and you have a lot of insights about plugging the right skill set with the right line of work. So, if someone listening feels stuck in a job, let's say right now, and they want to be their own boss, set their own schedule, run an online business, be successful at doing that, what sorts of traits do folks need to possess to make this work?
Mm. Good question. So I think the ability to, focus on it, like the ability to want to do it is really important.
Mm-hmm.
So I've run into clients that want all the fun stuff about it. They don't want to work for somebody else, and they want it all to kind of come easy.
Right.
And I get it, but it doesn't happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like being able to like understand that you do have to work for it is one trait, and the ability to work for it. And then
how do you like measure desire when you're coaching someone?
That's a good question too. So there's not a formal scale, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's about like when I'm coaching somebody, I get to kind of observe their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get to watch like how they dig in to different tasks. So for example, I'm working with a client now who is, this particular client is not doing a home-based business, but she is starting a franchise, and
Mm-hmm.
her desire is very high. So she's got she's looking at two different franchise opportunities. She's narrowed it down. She's done so much research. She's flying to the headquarters of each of these to talk to the people at the top, I guess, and find out more about them. She's done so much stuff to figure out like which one is going to be right for her. So like in a home business, like kind of looking at like how much work are you willing to put in. And then I've had other clients who, when we are doing the work, they, I'll give them sort of homework or action items, and they're like, I don't know. They don't want to do that. They don't want to take it on. And so
Maybe it's because you remind them of a boss.
well, that's a very good point. But actually, I talk a lot about this on my blog. I try very hard not to.
Mm-hmm.
When I give homework, and this is sort of an aside, so I won't spend long on it, but
Sure.
I talk about accountability and holding people accountable. And I make a big deal about this, so I have to talk about it. When I hold people accountable, it really is about helping you to do what you want. It's not my job. It's not my responsibility. It's about me assisting you in your goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not somebody that's going to like have the whip and like take that out and like, and do that, because it's really like, it's not about me.
I was being a little facetious there.
Yeah, and I totally know you were, but I have to like grab onto it because I do. There's a lot of people that they use that term, and it drives me nuts when they say, I need somebody to hold me accountable. And coaches do it too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hold you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be that coach that will hold you accountable. And I think about like that drill sergeant, and I hate it because you have to be self-motivated for it to work, because otherwise the second we stop working together, guess what happens?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
You're on your own.
Yes, you are. So my goal is to help you find goals that you care about enough to do something about, and I will help you, but I can't do it for you, and I can't yell at you enough to make you do it. So sorry for my tirade.
No, that's great. So aside from desire, and it sounds like maybe organization, any other traits?
Good. Yeah, organization is good, but you know what? I will tell you, I'm not the most organized person in the world. I don't think that's, I wouldn't say that. Organization is great if you have it. It's awesome. I think what's better, though, is your ability to kind of see what your strengths are and towards those. So for me, I know I'm an ideas person. Organization is not my strength, so I have a VA. If you are an ideas person and you can get a VA. If you're not an ideas person and you're an organizational person, then, go to a business that feels more structured maybe, and you don't have to be as creative, or maybe get into a mastermind where you can work with people that will help you generate ideas and you can do the organizational stuff on your own. So I think your ability to work to your strengths is another thing that I would say is probably better than your ability to be organized.
But some people don't know their strengths, so you help them discover those. Is
Absolutely.
that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can take a strengths assessment online, so you can find your strengths. But I absolutely help people find strengths that even beyond that, and articulate them. So yeah, yep.
So I'm just curious. This is a little bit off in a new direction, but I just want to take a moment to talk about what you think of robotics technologies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there seems to be already jobs disappearing because of robotics technologies, and I'm just curious, how do you think this is going to impact the workforce in the future?
Yeah, I think this is actually a really huge topic.
We could do a whole show on this.
You could do a whole blog or business on this.
Yeah, right.
This is a huge thing. So I think we actually already, a couple of pieces that we've talked about already touch on this.
hmm
I think one is creativity is going to be really highly prized in the
hmm
future. And I think your ability to not know all the answers, but to know how to get the answers is going to be important. And I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
In one fraction of a second, Google can tell you more about anything related to career change than I ever could.
hmm
It knows everything, right?
hmm
But what it doesn't know is anything about like how to work with a person and how to understand you and how to make you feel better when you're sad.
hmm
A robot can't do that.
Right.
A person can. So I think that um, in the future, it's really not going to be about um, it's not going to be about your ability to know things,
hmm
even to know how to do complex things. It's
Right.
going to be your ability to figure out how do I have a new solution to a problem, or how do I do something very human, or how am I more creative? I think there's going to be different types of challenges that only humans can solve and robots can't, that we need to
hmm
start focusing on.
Yeah. Do you think what they call the human touch, or being able to apply the emotional aspect to things, like, for example, there's robotics now that I guess is writing copy,
Mhm.
like sales copy or marketing copy, but that algorithm or that software, whatever it is, doesn't have the emotions of humans.
Mhm.
So how can it actually really tap into like writing a captivating headline if it doesn't have the emotional aspect? Do you think that that will be valued in the future, like the whole thing with emotions?
Yeah, I really think so. I mean, I don't know anything. I can't say that I know anything about the sales copy or marketing copy and how good that the product of that actually is.
hmm
But yeah, I mean, I think anything related to the human touch, like humanness, is not being a robot. I
hmm
think anything related to being human and like emotional intelligence is probably going to be pretty important in the technological world.
Yeah,
Because you can't out-robot a robot, no matter how hard you try.
right. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I'm sure we could look into that and find out all kinds of cool things about that. Um, so let's say um, Mr. James, who is 52, has lost his job thanks to a robot,
Mm-hmm.
and he's wanting to make a career change.
Mm-hmm.
Because you help people in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s and 60s to change careers.
Yep.
What are some of the most common reasons why middle-aged people stay stuck in a job?
Mm. Well, I think the big reason is fear. I mean, I think, and that's
Hmm.
why I talk about the mindset stuff because I think that's the biggest reason.
Yeah.
I think
That's
then,
that's the biggest reason why people don't even start blogging.
yep, it's
Uh,
fear.
yeah,
And
it's
I think that's the biggest thing. So,
right.
and the second reason is finances. But I'll tell you an interesting story. One of my recent clients actually is in finance.
Hmm.
Um, and I talked to him about, um, do you know if your family finances can actually support this move? Because he was kind of afraid about making the move because he didn't know if he could afford to.
Hmm.
And he was like, I don't know. So my homework for him was like, do you think you could go look at your budget and see like what do you actually need to live comfortably?
Hmm.
And he was like, all right, I'm going to go do that. And so the next week when we met, he was like, it's all right. We can do this.
Hmm.
So even like the finances, they were okay for him. It was the fear about the finances that were holding him back. Now that was just his case. In some cases, it really is the finances. Like it's just the money's not there. In which case you have to get more creative. But um, I think fear does hold a lot of people back, and the fear of not having money holds a lot of people back. And
Yeah.
even from looking at like what's the real situation here and what can I do about it?
Right. Well, what are some things that middle-agers can do to get unstuck?
Hmm. Well, I think the first thing is like let the fear loosen enough to think about what can I do? What can I do here?
Let the fear loosen?
Yeah, I mean, just let it go. And like for him, it was like this client that I just talked about, like he let it loosen enough to like he had such a tight grip on it before. And so
Hmm.
when we talked about it, he was like, all right, I'm going to let go of that grip enough to look at my budget. And then he
Yeah.
realized it was actually okay. So I think for other people, for middle agers who need to make a change, um, the very first step is let go of your fear enough to ask yourself the question, what do I need to do? You know, sometimes it's looking at your budget.
Hmm.
Sometimes it could be talking to your spouse. Sometimes it could be hiring a coach. It could be um, looking at other job options that are open to you, talking to your network. There might be
Hmm.
multiple steps. There might be any number of things that you could do. But I think what prevents you from thinking creatively about what the next thing to do is the fear that's paralyzed you from thinking of
Yeah.
what can I do?
Right. Yeah, I mean, knowledge really can be liberating.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like from your example, a little bit of knowledge, helped him to loosen that fear as you
Yeah.
describe it,
Yep.
just by taking a look at some of the details, which you helped him to see. That's
Yep.
that's that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Definitely.
So, any other besides fear? Are there any other reasons why people get stuck?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there truly are financial reasons that people get stuck.
Hmm.
Sometimes there are real employment reasons, like they are contracted in a situation, or they're worried about, they don't want to quit this job without another job in hand. I
Hmm.
have a client that is stuck in a terrible job right now, and she was previously unemployed for over a year, and so she really doesn't want to quit this job until she knows what she wants to do and um,
Hmm.
has another job offer. So she's sticking it out until she has that. So she feels really stuck because she doesn't want to be unemployed.
Hmm.
So there's that. There's a lot of different reasons, but I think those are some of the big ones.
Has there ever been a case or any reason for you as a coach where you would recommend somebody quit a job even though they don't have a new job or
Mm.
career lined up?
Well, as a coach, I don't actually make recommendations. What I do
Oh,
is
okay.
I help people figure out what they want to do.
Okay.
So there have been definitely some of my clients that have done that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been relieved that they have. Absolutely. But I would never say to somebody, you need to quit. Because God forbid they did that and then they, thought that was the worst idea ever.
Right.
The next day. So yeah. So what I do is I walk them through like basically the question of what do you think you need to do here until they arrive at their answer of, and their decision of what they want to do. And then I support them in doing that.
Great. Well, I want to wrap up with a couple of questions. One of them is one that I ask all my guests, and this has been great. Jessica, first of all, as someone who's been running the Wishing Well business now for several years, for your, working for yourself, how has self-employment changed your life?
It's been amazing. So first, I didn't have to go back to work. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And I really, really, I have 2 kids now, and I really have enjoyed being able to stay home with them and not have to stress about, finding part-time work or contract work or juggle all that craziness. I just work from home on my own schedule, doing my own thing. And that's been so amazing, watching them grow up, and it's just been incredible. And then on top of that, the work that I do, I absolutely love. Like it's somebody asked me the other day, oh, is your day off, or, is this day going to be free time, or is it going to be work time? And I was like, what's the difference? So I really love it.
That's great.
It's totally changed my life. It's incredible.
Okay. And how has blogging changed your life?
Blogging is where it all started. I mean, I couldn't have built this business without my blog, because my blog is, like I said, it's sort of my radio to the world. It's like how I get my voice out there. So my blog is the voice of my business.
Jessica, where can people connect with you online?
So my website is wishingwellcoach.com, just like it sounds. One thing, wishingwellcoach.com.
Fantastic. And I guess there's some links as well to your social media profiles and.
Yep. They can find it all right there. There's a lot of free resources on there. They can connect with me, right on there. And
yeah, what's that one free ebook that you offer?
Yeah, so there's a Ultimate Guide to Career Change at 40 and Beyond on there, and there's also the Reverse Resume, which is it's a guide to creating. It's seven questions to creating your dream job, and it's something that was actually featured in Business Insider, so they can download that there as well.
Great. Well, Jessica, thanks for being on the show today. This has been really interesting.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Blog Chronicles. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe on YouTube or iTunes and leave a rating or review to help other bloggers find us. If you want to chat, look me up on Twitter @MattLoomis. Next time on the Blog Chronicles, we'll chat with blogging coach and consultant David Boozer about the leading indicators of a good blog. What makes a blog effective and what doesn't work? To find out, come join us on the next episode of the Blog Chronicles.